We're in 1 Corinthians 12. We're going to be in verse 13. 1 Corinthians 12, verse 13. I'm going to read it until the end of it. For by one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, whether Jews or Greeks, whether slaves or free, and have all been made to drink into one Spirit. For in the fact, the body is not one member, but many. If the foot should say, because I am not a hand, I am not the body, is it therefore not the body? And if the ear should say, because I am not an eye, I am not of the body, is it therefore not of the body? If the whole body were an eye, where would be the hearing? If the whole body were hearing, where would be your smelling? But now God has sent the members, each one of them, in the body just as he pleased. And if they were all one member, where would the body be? But now indeed there are many members, yet one body. And the eyes cannot say to the hands, I have no need of you, nor again the hand to the feet, I have no need of you. No, much rather those members of the body which seem to be weaker are necessary. And those members of the body which we think to be less honorable, on these we bestow greater honor, and our unpresentable parts have greater modesty. But our presentable parts have no need. But God composed the body, having given great honor to these parts which lack it, that there should be no schism in the body, but the members should have the same care for one another. And if one member suffers, all the members suffer with it. And if one member is honored, all the members rejoice with it. Now you are the body of Christ and members individually. And God has appointed those in the church, first apostles, second prophets, third teachers, after that miracles, then gifts of healing, help, administration, various tongues. Are all apostles? Are all prophets? Are all teachers? Are all workers of miracle? Do all have the gift of healing? Do all speak in tongues? Do all interpret? But earnestly desire the best gift, and yet I show you a more excellent way. So he's talking about the body. What happens if our heart all of a sudden quits pumping?
We die.
We die, but you can't see the heart. The heart's protected in your chest cavity and everything, but we don't see it, do we?
No.
We don't even realize what job it's doing. We don't have to tell it to beat.
Thank goodness we don't have to tell it.
I know. It's big time. I mean, your kidneys, they function on their own. They're protected. But in the church, what happens? Lots of times, we don't think about the people that are doing the stuff behind the scenes. And sometimes they think their job isn't any good. They think their job isn't as important as a pastor's that's up front, do they?
That's not true. What Bert does every Sunday is amazing.
But that some people don't think it's important.
I do.
And people are doing music, sometimes they think music's more important, don't they? What happens if we just think one thing is more important than anything else in the church?
That's not good.
Yeah, there's a lot of churches that do that though. They just focus on one or two of the gifts, don't they?
That's not good.
If we would just focus on music,
what would be, what preaching?
we would lose the preaching, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
We just focus on the preaching, what we lose? We lose the music, don't we?
Yeah.
Each one of those things hit us a little bit different, don't they?
Yeah.
What happens if we don't focus on visiting?
If we don't focus on visiting, stuff starts falling apart.
You start losing people, don't you?
Yeah.
They don't think you care. What happens if we quit helping people? As we're told.
Yeah. They don't think you care then.
Wait a minute, but these are things that people don't see that happens behind the scenes, aren't they?
Yeah.
We have things going on in the church that people don't realize go on. We're all one body. We can't just focus on one little thing. If we just focus on, you hear people, a lot of churches, they say, well, I go to another church because of the music. What happens if you just focus on music? Things fall apart, don't they? I mean, I use music because it's probably one of the things that most churches fight about the most. But what happens if you forget about the older people in the church?
They leave and don't.
You lose the wisdom, don't you?
Yeah.
You lose your wisdom in the church. You lose the ones that can help the other ones through hard times, because the things you guys have went through, and I went through, a lot of the younger ones haven't never been through it, have they? I remember my first time on the deacon board, and there was problems going on in the church. And one of the older elders said to me on the board, he said, hang in there. He says, all my years of being a deacon, this has only happened one time. You know what difference that made for me?
A lot.
A lot. Because when we were going through the problems, I was like, okay, how do I handle this? But he actually he encouraged me and kept me going. So, when you go through them things, why does he have all the different people here? Everybody's been through something different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can understand what somebody's going through. If somebody's going through a divorce, if you're all one body and you're working together, can't you help them through that situation?
Yeah.
If somebody's going through a death or loss of a spouse, who's going to help them the most?
People.
Somebody's been through it.
Yeah.
It was nice because when my grandfather committed suicide, okay, that's completely different than a regular death.
Yeah.
People don't understand that.
Yeah.
When you go through that, but there was a lady in our church that did go through it, and she came up and talked to me. And she said, she told me you're going to go through, first you're going to be mad at him, then you're going to be wondering if you could have stopped it, and then you're going to wonder what I could have done to stop it. And there's no answers to any of them.
No. You're left hanging.
But most people, they go through natural deaths, they would never know that part. She was able to talk me over, which was, that's the body working together, isn't it?
Mm.
That's somebody taking what their hard times they went through and being one body and saying, let me help you.
Something we may
What's
not
that?
ever accept
Yep.
in our life.
Yeah.
Well, we're called to do that.
That's hard to.
You know, most
Hard
people,
things are hard.
most people when they go through a hard time, when they see somebody else going through, do they want to talk to them? Most of the time they don't. We're called to weep. It said there, you know, it said right there, and if one member's suffering, the members suffer with it. And if one member's honored, all the members rejoice with it. So we're supposed to be rejoicing and mourning with each other, aren't we? That's a big part. When you're a family, if one of your kids are hurt, what do you usually try doing? You go take care of them, don't you? Most parents are going to break their necks to go and help them. And that's what we're supposed to do as members of the family. We're supposed to all stand together. We're supposed to be working together. Now, do everybody see what everybody's doing? No. I mean, you can go through and through and through, and it's crazy because these are gifts he gives us. Because, you know, he says the first of the church is apostles, first apostles, second prophets, so people prophesying, third teachers, and after that miracles and gifts of healing, and helps, That's helping people, isn't it? Administration and a variety of tongues. Now, do we have all these at once?
No.
There's sometimes, you know, you could be a teacher, but you might not be able to be a teacher to a whole group. But you teach one person. When you're just teaching one person, isn't that being a teacher?
Mm-hmm.
One-on-one is probably one of the best ways you can teach. I know with guys, most guys don't like to talk. But if you're out doing a project with them, working on something, you'd be surprised at things they tell you. When I have the guys down there lifting, the kids will tell me their life stories. And they never know it. Because we're just sitting there, but what do? I can teach them during that time. You know, we have to do what God tells us to do. And that's using each one of our gifts. I mean, this is what he's trying to get through to us. They were fighting over little things, arguing over little things. And what's that do to a church? It divides it. In a divided church, is that any good?
No.
And we got to realize sometimes at different parts of our life, we change our ministries. Like I know Steve here, he would love to be able to go help with the teens. But physically, he can't do it anymore. So what God do? He put you in prayer. That's we're called to do different things. What is your calling? What is your gift that God gave you? Every one of us is supposed to be using them. And this is the big thing in the church, because lots of times in the church we don't use everybody's gifts. And what happens to a church when you don't use everybody's gifts? It just falls apart. We need to realize that each one of us here to use our gifts, but we also have to teach the other ones to use theirs. We have to go out and show them what it is. Because most of them don't know what their gifts are. Most of us have never tried more than one or two things in a church. You probably never tried to do any other ministries and it's scary. This is one of my biggest fears. I'm standing up right here, public speaking. And that's most people's biggest fear. I told Kim I'd never be up here speaking on a Sunday night or Sunday morning. So, This is God telling me I had to do something. But we have to use what God gave us, don't we? And this is what we need to do. And each one of us have to do it the best of we can do it. And that's what my desire is here for this church, to see everybody using their gift. Because when they do, it makes a different church. You quit worrying about your own problems when you start helping people with their other problems. So, let's go to prayer.